Hi, everyone. Welcome to INA's Fireside Chat. David and Charles. We have David Ensor, International Needs Australia's CEO, and our partners in the field. David has been in Uganda the past week, monitoring and evaluating our projects. So today we're going to be hearing a bit of his experiences and his insights from the field, as well as our partners, their experiences and challenges implementing the projects here, and answering some questions from all of our supporters. So I'll leave it to you, David, to start off with introductions.
Yeah, good day, everyone. I'm in Kampala in Uganda, and with Ivan and Charles, who are our key partner representatives in the field with International Needs Uganda. So I'm sure they'll have a lot to say. Ivan, unfortunately, has issues with connectivity, so won't be coming in on. Because Ivan and myself will sort of hopefully share some stories from the field. Should I kick off, Madelyn, just with some initial reflections?
That would be great, David.
Yeah. I think, and maybe if Charles and Ivan could mute, just in terms of background noise for the sake. The programs in Uganda are multifaceted. So the level of poverty is extreme, and the World Bank and other organizations predict that 90% of those living in extreme poverty will live in sub-Saharan Africa by 2030. So by extreme poverty, we're talking about people living on less than $1.90 US a day. So we're talking about communities and individuals giving it a go under fairly extreme conditions. And our programs typically focus on helping people to help themselves. So the primary purpose is sharing skills, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a while. Supporting schools, supporting often the most marginalized. So the people who typically aren't supported by mainstream development programs doing great work, but at a much larger scale than us. Ours tend to focus very much on communities and parts within the communities who are the most marginalized. So an example of that is a program funded through Perpetual Impact Trusts, the Very Good Foundation, focused on youth living in ghettos around some of the towns. And I sort of met the youth at different stages of that journey. Right at the beginning, heavily impacted by drugs, living on probably 30 cents a day, food and drugs. So you're talking about people on their knees, don't see any hope for life. These are the words they use: don't see hope for life, don't see the point in carrying on. To help get people off their knees to consider an alternative is a challenging journey in itself, and there's a program and process for doing that. And then meeting groups of those same groups of youths, learning how to be bike mechanics, car mechanics, builders, hairdressers, welders, with a completely different perspective on life, but actually seeing with dreams about what they can do to earn a living, dreams about what they can do to make a change to people in their community. And all of them had a social compact with themselves to make a difference themselves to other people in similar positions. And the one guy is a leader with the unfortunate name of Bullet. And I asked him why his name was Bullet, and he says because when he lived in the ghetto, his word was final, and people knew not to mess with him. So, Bullet's learning a skill, and he was quite clear about what he saw his role of trying to help move people into this journey of learning the skills. We now consider that program has been so successful now that it's forming a basis for a government-funded program. So the funding given by Perpetual is primed to pump, and the Very Good Foundation is primed to pump to really start a program in that region, which hopefully will benefit many more youths. Also met a number of women, often women who, again, had no skills, widows. There are about 1.2 million orphans in Uganda. It's a very traumatized country because of AIDS and conflict. And many single women trying to make a go of it without any skills. And the EB Charitable Trust, the Blackaby family, the June Canavan Foundation are two organizations that actually came in behind those programs and helped us make a significant difference to women who are again at the edges, trying to make a go, not only in agriculture, but in retail. I spend probably the most time with farmers groups. So maize is the primary subsistence crop in Uganda, with traditional farming methods. A typical household, which needs 5 or 6 bags of maize to live a year, would harvest between 2 and 4 bags. With new farming methods, they're able to actually increase that to 40 bags. So instead of the traditional 4 bags to 5 bags, which just meets their subsistence needs, they're able to get 40 bags on the same patch of land with different farming techniques, different seeds, organic approaches to what they do. That lets them sell that grain, the excess grain. And I spoke to 2 families. One said, well, both of them, they've all got a consistent message. They always only thought of their kids doing primary school and then they drop out because they couldn't afford anything further. The stories now are tertiary education is a possibility, and that's something that we know we can do. We've got more money to invest in it. They showed me with their houses before they simply learned how to farm differently. They showed me the houses before, which were simple shacks, safe, protecting them, but limited to what became much more comfortable houses with pit latrines and a much safer environment for children. And I also spoke to many of the farmers about what's more important to you. Is it about being taught new things, how to grow crops and look after your health, look after health issues, or is it about getting seeds and farming implements to help you farm better and inputs? And the overwhelming response, both here and in Nepal actually, was awareness across the board, whether it's health, agriculture, livelihoods generally. They want the awareness and the skills training so they know what they need and know what to do with it. A very close second, obviously, is the inputs. And by simply having entrepreneurship training and financial management training, those farmers that get 40 bags of maize instead of the 4 they used to get on the same land now know that if they hold that maize back for a little bit, they can increase the value of it sometimes 50, 60% just by waiting until prices rise before releasing it to the market to sell. So in some communities, we've actually built stores for them. We through the Australian government and Australian Aid, which is a key funder of this program, a flour mill pilot was built, an extraordinary vision underpinning that by people within International Needs Australia, International Needs Uganda, and through the Australian Aid. And I saw that working. That increases the value of the maize probably 4-fold. So instead of selling grain, they sell flour, and we're exploring a program at the moment that we can take mobile flour mills to communities, get investors to help fund them, pay the investors back, and scale this up. Because we know that if we impact on maize production and the return on investment with maize right up front, we impact on so many things. We impact on education, we impact on health, we impact on so many things. And one of the other issues I raised with these communities of farmers groups that I met is, you're organized, so you're mobilized yourself within the community. What else are you going to do? Because there's so many issues to deal with. There's health, there's education, there's women's rights issues, there's teenage pregnancies. You've got all these issues. You're mobilized, you're organized. What are you going to do now? Where are you going to focus yourselves? And they're all quite instant in coming back, and most of them are women. They're fairly instant in coming back and saying, if we get our own income sorted, we fix our livelihoods, that underpins everything else. We know we can invest in education, we can improve our family nutrition and health, we can build up better accommodation. So we provide loans. It's the farmers' money that they save and draw on to start their businesses. We top it up when they don't have enough, between International Needs Uganda and ourselves, and we help them to cash up their businesses to get them going. I'll talk a bit about education and youth a little bit later, but that's sort of the main sort of key points of this experience. And I'm only speaking from my experience. I'm sure there's lots of knowledge in the virtual room, but just based on my experience, those are some of the thoughts.
I think those are some amazing points you talked about, David, of agriculture and these multifaceted ways that we're addressing poverty. It doesn't just help poverty reduction, but it also helps economic growth. It helps education, health, all of these things that it contributes to. And we're scaling up in a way that makes that sustainable impact. I would love to hear from you, Charles and Ivan, of how the programs, how you're implementing them in that way to build that sustainable long-term impact with the communities.
You're muted, Charles.
Yeah, we, International Needs Uganda, we are very pleased to partner with International Needs Australia and the Australian people to support the struggling rural farming households in Uganda through different interventions. And farming is key among them. And then education support, youth skilling programs, water, and many other programs that we are involved in. So through farming, we look at, we are focusing at supporting struggling households be able to educate their children, provide nutrition, and to meet their health needs. And we are looking at transforming their farming practices from the traditional to improved and recommended farming practices, which involves adopting use of improved planting materials, like the hybrid maize seeds and fertilizer application. And we've mobilized these farmers to form groups. Over the past few years, we've supported formation of 200 farmer groups, and these farmer groups are placed under different farmers associations in respective communities where we partner with, and we are focusing mainly in the central, and recently we've moved on to the eastern region. These farmers, to date, we have about 30,000 37,000 people in the 6,000 farming households that we have been engaging in, and we've helped them to access regular extension education through linking up with government extension workers who normally find it hard to get to these farmers because of poor facilitation by the government. So we've linked farmers, the farmer groups, to tap into the skilled government personnel, and they're accessing the training. We've encouraged them to save the little incomes that they've been earning, and to save for investing in viable farming. Previously, they used to save for consumption, but we wanted them to adopt transformational saving, which they invest and then we top up, just as you've had David explain. And this has really helped us to help enable them access improved farm inputs, and the production levels is rather amazing. You know, it is more than 3-4 times the production by planting season, and this has helped improve food security at households. Children who previously were not going to school are now able to go to school because their parents can afford to sustain them in school to meet their tuition and provide other educational need. Universally, we know of the universal primary education that the government supports, but you still find that many households in Uganda don't still support their children to access this education because there are no meals at school. The school uniforms, the scholastic materials require money, which the government is not providing. So you find that the completion rate for primary education is just about 40% in the country. So through this intervention, International Needs Uganda is helping the over 6,000 households to enable their children attain education, and that has had a tremendous contribution in the lives of the children and the partner communities that we are supporting. And also through this organized kind of farming, where they are in groups, they are able to link up with the different other service providers in terms of the private farm supply dealers to access quality farm inputs. They are able to mobilize other local resources from other local donors to help them move forward. So the initiative has really been successful, but the challenge we still need is like there are many more farmers, especially towards the east, which is the poorest region of the country, with over 40% of the rural communities living below poverty line. So we would like to extend to the eastern part of the country to reach out to these farmers who are still practicing traditional farming practices and barely able to meet their nutritional needs, the health needs, and the educational needs. And I think with the continued partnership and the involvement of different potential supporters, we can make transformation in the lives of several households. My major work at International Needs is to provide technical support to different project teams to ensure we come up with effective plans that address the identified needs of the partner communities. So providing planning skills, providing support supervision, streamlining reporting, so that we are able to measure the different achievements that we come to realize together with our partner communities. So we've been glad to host David in the previous week, and he has had first-hand experience to see the different changes that we are making hand in hand with the local partners to support the struggling rural farming communities, and also the other different interventions that we've supported among the youths that had dropped out of school because of parenting challenges and because of the hard economic times. So we are greatly appreciative of this continued partnership and the support by the people of Australia that are really making significant changes and transformation in the lives of the struggling farmers and the rural communities in Uganda. Thank you, Madelyn.
That's amazing, Charles. Thank you so much for that. What you and Ivan are doing in the field is truly transformative. And I just want to encourage all of the supporters tuning in now to leave Charles questions if there's any questions about the programs that you would like answered while we are streaming him from Uganda. Please pop them in the comments and we will be sure to get to them. David, I wanted to ask you as well, are there any other stories of the individuals you've met, these beneficiaries who are being touched and impacted by the project? There's stories that have touched you when you've been here in Uganda that you'd like to share with us.
So many. I think one that comes to mind as you asked that question. So I'll
might be experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties. Should resolve itself in a moment.
Yep, there we go.
There we go. Might pop your camera off, David.
Sorry, the connectivity in Uganda can be patchy, so apologies for that. I think it's a grandmother who I met who had gone through the program. She showed me the single hut that she lived in before she started the program, then showed me the house that she had built with brick, with a pit latrine. And this grandmother was looking after 6 grandchildren. So there are many orphans in Uganda. So the onus for child rearing often ends up with grandparents. In this case, it wasn't around orphans. It was the children's father had disappeared, and the mother was struggling to make ends meet in another part of the country. And she was saying just how she could not possibly have reared these kids in an environment of poverty that she was in before she went through this program to increase her productivity. And she had everything from maize to goats to cattle to when a cow or goat has offspring, it is sold and the money is reinvested in another goat or a pig or it's part of the financial literacy and entrepreneurship training that International Needs Uganda does is around actually helping people invest their money, not use it for daily consumption. And she was a living, shining example of that. She had invested in a new animal. She had improved her agriculture, and she was one of the people who spoke about the education dreams that she had for her grandchildren that just weren't there a year ago. One often associates poverty with misery, and the other thing that comes to mind at that same home is these 6 kids playing with a ball. And I looked at the ball, and like many soccer balls in Uganda, they're homemade. So they plastic bags filled with cloth tied together with natural vines or tape or whatever, and that's the soccer ball, and the fun happens. And I think there's a lot of joy and hope in the people that I met. They know that they're doing it hard. They know that they can deal with the hardship and embrace new opportunities, and they know that the onus is on them to grasp the opportunities. So our role is simply to capture that energy and positivity and make sure that what we provide them is the best possible training and resources to help them take control of their lives on a different trajectory. So that's the person who comes to mind as the sort of shining light, and Charles and Ivan might have others that motivate them.
That's an amazing story, David, and I'm sure Charles and Ivan have many stories. Charles, are there any beneficiaries who you've come across that just have left you with an incredible transformation from the time when you first came to take them as part of the project, and then from the time after to where they are now, and how are their lives different?
Yeah, sure. We have actually thousands of households whose livelihoods have transformed as a result of engaging with us. There's nothing as pleasing as looking at what you've designed together with a poor community, bringing in transforming results. When you look at a household where the children have all dropped out of school because they're not able to support them to continue, and they are struggling to have a daily meal, and those are the targets, those are the kind of groups that you put together, and you are telling them, life can change. You can actually live to see that you have more than enough to eat, and your children can get back to school, and you can put up decent structures where you can live in, and it comes to pass just within 3 years. You see lives have changed, hope has been restored, faces are smiling, because you've just added in some few things. You've told them, you can adopt this kind of farming practice, and this is what we have, and this is what you are required to do, and you are all in agreement. And just within a season, those are like 4 months, somebody who has no food now has food, and they have more than enough even to sell to others, then get some more household income, and then their children can get back to school. That's amazing. There's a household that we visited with David. I think it was the last day in the field. This man was telling us how he used to live in a structure that if it starts raining and he's not at home, it would not be settled, because he thinks his structure would collapse at any time with strong wind and the rains. Now this man, just over 5 years, he has put up a permanent structure, really, and a decent, strong structure. So that is transformation. And you see, our government has faced this challenge for over the years in terms of trying to fight poverty, in trying to transform households, rural households, but it seems not to be working out because of the approaches. When you have the different approaches and they're not working out, it is quite discouraging. But we thank God for the skills and the knowledge and partners that has been availed to us, and that we've put together, and we see this working. The extension education is working. Access to improved farming inputs is working out. Production and productivity is increasing, simply because we've gotten the skills to identify the key ingredients that are needed in transforming these people. You save for investment. You abandon the traditional farming practices that we've been involved in over the past 30, 40 years. And because we are so close to them, we are working side by side with them, we're encouraging and motivating them. This has brought in an amazing result. And just within 2, 3, 4 years, you've transformed a household and a community. And I think we are just wanting to use those kind of practices and lessons and the good practices that we've been piloting and putting in place to roll out to even bigger communities. And because we've seen it work, it is not now about guesswork, but we want to roll out what is working. And it is just what requires kind of minimal support, which really we think INA, the people of Australia, and many other well-wishers can work with us through this journey to bring smiles and joy in families that previously have been having sad faces and struggling in life. Those are really, there are many cases. You can't just say 1, 2, 3. There are thousands, because to date, with support from Australia, we've reached out to over 6,000 farming households, and we want to get out to more. Thank you, Madelyn.
Thank you so much, Charles. Just to think that over 6,000 individuals have been impacted through the programs is quite extraordinary. Thank you so much for that. We do have a couple of questions I'd like to get to. One of which is I'd love to hear more about the youth skills program that you are currently implementing. If you could talk about the Perpetual Impact Grant from the Very Good Foundation, which is an extraordinary foundation, has made a huge difference in the lives of these youth. Could you talk about the impact that is making?
Yeah, sure. I don't know whether Ivan is online. Ivan has been in the front line in that field. But,
so Ivan's come back now, Madelyn. You may want to ask him the question, because he's the guy.
Ivan, yes, we would love to hear more from you about the Youth Skills Program and the difference that the Perpetual Impact Grant from the Very Good Foundation is making in the lives of these young individuals. If you could talk more about that, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madelyn and the team. In the first place, I want to take this opportunity to appreciate our funders, the supporters, who mobilized the funds to ensure that these young people, the youth, the disadvantaged youth, also get access to a skill which can enable them live a better life. So, in a special way, I want to appreciate the Perpetual Impact Grant. Through, I think we received that money through the Very Good Friends, the Very Good Foundation. And since then, the lives of these young people who have been impacted by the support from the Very Good Foundation has not been the same. This project caters for 120 participants. We have 68 of them female and 52 are male. And what stands out from this project is that most of these young people who had previously lost hope, especially in terms to do with attaining a skill which can enable them live a decent life, have now started getting appropriate and required skills that can enable them live a meaningful life. I just want to give to bring out 2 or 3 examples of some of the children or the youth whose lives have been touched through that kind of arrangement. We have a case in point of Bashir. Bashir is a 22-year-old young man, but before this program was rolled on, this boy was under the influence of drugs. After the death of his father, I think life became a bit challenging for him. And he then started joining gangs in a ghetto who negatively influenced him. So he started engaging himself into self-destructive behaviors, taking marijuana, alcohol, and other drugs. So to him, life was not making any sense, and he didn't have any hope of being a better person. But in the due course, as we interacted with some of the community members, and they showed us the kind of life that these young people were living, we had to come and interface with them. And when this opportunity came, the scaling project, we had it at the back of our minds that we wanted these young people to live a transformed life through that kind of arrangement. So since then, Bashir was enrolled into the program. His life has now been changed. He no longer takes drugs. Actually, he says he regrets the time he wasted living that kind of life. So at the moment, Bashir is doing a course in metal fabrication, and he's doing so well with his studies. Actually, at the moment, he can even make beds, metallic windows, metallic doors, cash safes, and so many other things. So he's happy that his life has been changed, and he's also encouraging so many young people to live, to change their lives so that they can also become responsible citizens in the country. The other case moved along with David at the Vocational Institute, and we had an interaction with that young man. Ibrahim was born with a physical disability, and since his birth, the father decided to reject him. Actually, he disowned him. He said, I can't give birth to such kind of kids with physical deformities. So that thing itself tormented this young man for so long, and he lost touch with his father. So when the mother, who was his only hope by then, also passed on, he realized that life was not making sense for him. So he went through a period of emotional distress with no hope that he can live a better life. He dropped out of school because there was nobody to cater for his school fees and other school requirements. So when this opportunity came, he got the information, I think, from the pastor, because we engaged the different stakeholders in mobilizing these youth to join the program. So when that opportunity came, the young man made use of it, and right now is learning skills in mechanics. He says that he believes with that skill, he'll be able to employ himself, and his life will not be the same again. Lastly, as far as the skilling program is concerned, there's also a young girl called Irene, who was made, actually, she was impregnated by a certain young man who eventually dumped her. Now, when that happened, of course, in our setting, sometimes when you give birth, especially at teenage age, it is more like you become a disgrace to the family. So she was rejected by the family, at the same time dumped by the boy who made her pregnant. So he had to look after the baby. At the point when she didn't have any meaningful source of income. But I'm happy to say that after joining this skills project, she's now actively involved in hairdressing, and she makes part-time income from other clients outside the institute who come for hairdressing. So she says that her life is getting better each and every passing day, and she can ably take care of her baby. So in summary, I just want to say that the skilling project is impacting the lives of so many young people. We went with David to another institute called Gatewise. I think David can attest to that. There are so many young people whose lives have been transformed. They are living a ghetto life with no hope, and some of them were living a life which I can say a life of self-resignation. But right now, they have hope, and their lives have changed, and we believe they are going to touch many lives of young people with that kind of support. So I want to appreciate you, our friends in Australia, and more so the very good foundation for reaching out to so many young people who are hopeless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Those stories are truly inspiring, and a common theme you hear in those stories is that the youth go and talk about the impact that the program had on them, and it continues to help other youth in the community. So it truly has a rippling effect. So even though there's 120 enrolled, you are helping so many more than that, which is quite incredible. David, do you have any other words for the skills program, having seen it firsthand?
I think you hit right on the point there, Madelyn. It's the ripple effect that is so important, both in the farming programs and in the skills programs. You have farmers who are taught new ways of productivity that can increase their farming, that can increase their productivity between 5 and 10 times. And when you speak to them, they say, I've taught another 5 people, or I've taught another 10 people. So, the challenge for us is to try to quantify that, to actually show what the impact is of programs, both in terms of the transformed becoming teachers of other people, but also in terms of the impact on health and the impact on education, which are direct and real. In terms of the skills training, the people that learn the skills teach the skills to others. They encourage others to join, and the challenge for us now, both in both of those programs, one is there are two issues. One's awareness and skills, and we're doing that. The other is, okay, well, we've taught somebody to weld now. How do we give them the wherewithal to go out there and earn an income with equipment that's going to help them earn that income? And the skills program loan scheme is something that we do want to explore. There's a return that can be got from that. So it's not a handout. We're not looking to give handouts, but to give a loan with the community, to the community, to help those people who've learnt the skills become self-earning. We've seen it with the farmers. We know it happens in the skills. We know that if you help farmers, instead of selling their maize as maize grain, but to grind it into flour, they get 3, 4, 5 times the value. How can we support them in doing that in a commercial way? That's not a handout, that there's a return for anybody who provides the support to do that. So for all of us, the issue in all of these programs is how to scale them. How do we learn from what we've done? How do we scale it to impact as many more people as possible? How do we do that in an impactful way that is innovative? Otherwise, we can get caught on a treadmill of making impacts on individual lives, which is quite worthy. But we don't want to lose the opportunity of greater impact through scalability. And I think that's the challenge we left each other with in our meetings here in Uganda. Is this is awesome work and changing so many lives. You've heard about it in the thousands, but in Uganda there are millions. And what is it that we can do to scale that up quickly and effectively? So yeah, they were absolutely humbling experiences to see young people picking themselves up off their knees and saying, I can map a better future for myself. I can see it. My parents and family have disowned me and booted me up because I have disabilities. I don't accept that. I'm going to actually do something. And with the assistance given through Perpetual Impact Grants and the Very Good Foundation, we're actually able to help him become a motorbike mechanic, to set up his own business. And yeah, he's just gleaming with positivity. So yeah, it was an awesome. There's awesome work happening here, and it's been a privilege to see it.
Thank you so much, David. That got me thinking about the heart of INA, which is also the heart of INUG and our other partners in other countries, of how we partner together in order to be able to achieve these goals and that sustainable impact. David, could you talk about maybe how these local partnerships play into creating that sustainable impact long term?
I think INA, International Needs Australia, is simply a bridge. I've emphasized that here whenever anyone's thanked me for doing anything. Anyone in the community's thanked me for coming and thanked me for doing whatever. I've always made the point that we're simply a bridge between people in Australia who have it in their hearts to make a difference to somebody else's life, and somebody in Uganda who wants to improve their lives. And in between the supporter in Australia and the people whose lives are being improved, on that bridge are International Needs Australia and International Needs Uganda. And our responsibility is to make sure most of that money gets to the field. And for us, 86% of the money we receive goes to education or development programs directly. And to make sure that it's sustainable, that it's not a one-off intervention, that each year is builds on the experiences of the previous year, and that the participants in the programs get the maximum input. So they're not getting dated information, they're getting the best possible seed, they're getting the best possible techniques. And Australian supporters make this change in so many ways. There's child sponsorship, which we haven't really touched on here, but I've seen the impact of that, both in terms of improving school systems, helping individuals go to school, because primary school is often seen as the exit point here. And the kids are bright. You know, I've engaged with them. They're very, very smart kids. But through poverty or lack of aspiration, mostly poverty because the aspirations are given, they have to step out of the system at primary school. And we heard of one girl, you know, family where the girl typically walks for 4 hours a day, 2 hours, two-hour return trips. I think it could even be sometimes 8, collecting water for the family. And, you know, with all this odds stacked against them, whether it's gender, whether it's poverty, whether it's lack of water, and you've got to go and do the chores, these kids still stick it out and want to advance their education. So the child sponsorship program, ChildLink, through International Needs Australia, does make that difference. The opportunity we face there again is, how do we scale that up? So where we do support a school, there's so many kids that aren't in school, how do we take that experience and support other teachers in other schools, support other kids in other schools? And that's a challenge we set ourselves here too. How do we use technology to help us do that in an innovative way? We also partner with schools in Australia. So schools have toured and visited the programs in Uganda, Trinity Grammar being one, and Trinity Grammar is about to visit our programs in the Philippines. The opportunity for Australian children to learn, to gain a global perspective in a respectful way is there. And bringing Uganda school classrooms into the classroom, like we did at one school at Kerry Grammar. We actually connected a primary school class to a primary school class in Uganda, and the kids faced each other off and asked each other questions about their lives. It's enriching for both groups. There are opportunities for industry to network. These communities and participants don't look for gifts and handouts. They're quite happy if you're improving their circumstances. There's the opportunities to give loans and repay them in a really targeted and well-managed way. So there's opportunities for industry to share knowledge, to support groups of farmers with loans, for example, to help them set up businesses. And it's a community building thing within an Australian business or within an Australian school or an Australian class to actually make a difference at little cost to themselves, but the feeling of being able to transform people's lives and trajectories is so real. So the partnerships are multifaceted, and I think the overarching gratitude from people here, not in a way that it's mutually respectful way, was quite humbling. They saw the people reaching out to help them as equals and helping give them a nudge on their way. And I saw the change it made, and it was significant.
It's amazing. Thank you so much, David and Charles and Ivan. We're approaching the end of our fireside chat. Is there anything we want to leave the donors and supporters with?
Yes. At International Needs, we hit many birds with one stone. And one of the other things, the advantages and the focus areas is creating peace and having peaceful communities that we work with. We are looking at having peace. And we know at the foundation of that, we need to have happy families. And poverty is a major factor in denying households and families peace. And we realize that through farming interventions and engaging and supporting vulnerable youths, we are supporting families to have peace. But when you look at the way we are approaching this, is that the farming groups that we are engaging, we are enabling them and creating awareness on gender relations and parenting, and we're also engaging children on responsible living, sharing with them skills on decision making. We been able to help restore relationships among wives and husbands, because we always encourage them to work together in their farms, to respect each other, and to share the resources equitably, to be able to support their children as they support themselves. So we've realized that on top of the improved incomes and the food security and the improved access to education, improved access to health care services, relationships at households has drastically improved because of our mentorship, awareness creation, and sensitization about peaceful coexistence at families. Then the other issue is about the issue of improving value on the production and the productivity from the farms. You realize that many households don't have storage facilities at their household level because the application of the improved farming methods enables them to realize increased farm inputs. So they tend to lack storage for their yield, and that tempts them to sell off the produce when prices are still low, when everybody else is harvesting. So we look forward to helping farmers put up storage facilities in their communities so that they're able to store together, to bulk their produce, and then resell later when prices have almost doubled. And that forms part of a viable farming practice. The value added due to storage, the other aspect of value, I think David has already shared in terms of processing. And the other issue is about equipment that are needed in helping farmers. Other than just the improved seeds and the fertilizers and the chemicals, farmers need equipment because of the climate change issues is at play. So you realize that most of our farming is rainfall fed. So some of the farmers are caught up with the drought, and they can't make any headways when drought sets in. So the technologies about irrigation is extremely important, and also the cultivation is still hand-hoe kind of cultivation. Actually, over 90% of them are using hand hoes. So issues of tractor application, maybe ox plows, pumping water irrigation is actually essential to have a complete transformation of these communities. So I would think like it is important to have that in the back of our mind as we continue thinking about sustaining the achievements that we've realized, and also even as we think of moving on to other new communities to expand and reach out to bigger numbers. I think we need a multifaceted approach, which is really sustainable, and it will not make these guys go back to where I found them. So I would like to, I really appreciate our donors, our partners, International Needs Australia, the government of Australia, and the people of Australia who have extended their support and the kind heart towards the vulnerable families in Uganda. And we look forward to continued partnership because we have actually very committed staff who are keenly interested and involved with the different partner communities. And with that, I think we give the assurance that we are going to create smiling faces. These previously sad and crying faces shall have happy children, happy families, peaceful communities as we continue supporting and working with these people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. David, would you like to say some last words to our supporters?
Well, thank you to the supporters and those interested who give the encouragement for the work. I think it is transformative, and it's been a pleasure to see on the ground just how transformative it is. I wish to acknowledge the hard work by International Needs Uganda. So Justice Mwanda is the executive director, Charles, Ivan, and the team who work tirelessly on the ground in a really respectful and light touch way, but a transformative way, and it's been wonderful to watch. Just to say that, you know, this journey is a long one. Our challenge is to do it as smartly as we can, and that's what I go back to the point that we want to be as scalable, impactful and innovative as we can with each dollar that we invest in these programs to impact on the most wide possible way that we can. And just wish to say thank you for your walking the journey with us all, and walking the journey most importantly with the people in the communities who are so desperately seeking to improve their lives. It means more than you could possibly know.
Thank you all so much. If there aren't any last words or questions, I think we've answered all of the questions. And that will conclude our fireside chat, but we hope the donors will join us on the future ones. We will certainly continue to do these and connect more supporters to the field and to our incredible partners. Thank you, Charles, Ivan, Justice, and the whole team for all that you're doing. All right.